She came to him because she was desperate. She had heard the stories, that there was a man living on the outskirts of Medan, a city in northern Sumatra, Indonesia, a cattle breeder, a dukun, a traditional spiritual healer. People said he had powers, that he could make a husband return, that he could cure sickness, that he could make a woman beautiful, irresistible, impossible to leave. She paid him. She followed him into the sugarcane fields behind his house. She was never seen again. She was not the first. She would not be the last. Between 1986 and 1997, Ahmad Suradji lured 42 women and girls into those fields. He buried each one of them standing upright, up to their waists in the earth, strangled them, and then drank their saliva, believing that doing so would grant him supernatural power. He was a father, a husband, a neighbor people greeted in the street, and for 11 years, he operated in plain sight. Ahmad Suradji was born in 1949 in North Sumatra, Indonesia. He grew up in the rural outskirts of Medan, Indonesia's third largest city, a place where modern life and ancient tradition existed side by side in ways that are difficult for outsiders to fully understand. He became a cattle breeder by trade, unremarkable work, a quiet life by the road. But Suradji also positioned himself as a dukun, a practitioner of traditional Javanese spiritual healing. Dukun are a deeply embedded part of Indonesian culture. They are consulted for everything from illness to relationship problems to business decisions. In rural communities especially, a dukun holds real authority, real trust. People come to them in their most vulnerable moments. Suradji understood this perfectly. He was reportedly charismatic in person, calm, reassuring, the kind of man who made desperate people feel like they had finally found someone who could help them. Women came to him from across the region, some young, some older, some traveling significant distances. They came with problems. They came with hope. He told investigators later that the killings began after a dream. In 1986, he claimed, the spirit of his late father appeared to him and delivered a message. To gain supernatural power, to become a true and unstoppable dukun, he must kill 70 women. He must drink their saliva. He must bury them with their heads facing his house. Only then would the power fully transfer to him. Whether Suradji genuinely believed this, or whether it was a framework he constructed to justify desires that already existed inside him, that question was never fully resolved. What is not in question is what he did next. The method. The pattern was consistent across 11 years. Women would come to Suradji seeking help, love problems mostly, a husband who had grown cold, a relationship that was failing, a desire to become more attractive, more powerful in the eyes of a man. These were human problems, universal ones, and Suradji offered solutions. He would take them to the sugarcane fields behind his property. He told them this was part of the ritual, that the ceremony had to be performed in a specific location, away from other people, at a specific time. This was not unusual for dukun practice. The women trusted him. In the fields, he would instruct them to stand in a hold he had already prepared. He would bury them from the waist down. He told them this was part of the spiritual process, that they needed to be connected to the earth for the power to work. Then he strangled them with a cable. He drank their saliva, and he left them there, buried upright in the ground, heads facing his house as his father's spirit had instructed, 42 times over 11 years. The victims ranged in age from 11 years old to 30. Some were from Medan. Some had traveled from other regions entirely, drawn by his reputation. Some came alone. Some were brought by family members who believed they were helping their daughters or sisters or wives. 11 years. Nobody came looking. Nobody connected the disappearances. The investigation. The case broke open in April 1997. A body was discovered in the sugarcane fields near Suradji's property, partially exposed, buried vertically. Police were called. They began to dig. What they found over the following days was unlike anything Indonesian investigators had encountered before. Body after body after body, all buried the same way, all in the same fields, all within reach of the same house. By the time the excavation was complete, 42 victims had been recovered. Suradji was arrested almost immediately. He lived next door to the evidence. He made no attempt to flee. When investigators questioned him, he did not deny what he had done. He explained it. He spoke about the dream, the instruction from his father's spirit, the 70 women he needed to kill to complete the ritual and achieve full power. He had only reached 42. He had not finished. Investigators and psychologists who examined Suradji faced a question that had no clean answer. Was he a true believer? A man who genuinely thought he was following spiritual instruction and building supernatural power? Or was the ritual framework something constructed after the fact? A story that gave his violence a shape and a reason? The honest answer is that both things can be true simultaneously. Research into killers who operate within religious or spiritual frameworks shows that genuine belief and genuine pathology are not mutually exclusive. A person can sincerely believe in a spiritual system while also using that system to act on impulses that would exist with or without it. What is clear is that Suradji had developed a complete internal logic, a world in which what he was doing was not murder, but transformation. Not destruction, but accumulation. Every woman he killed brought him closer to the power his father had promised him. He showed no remorse because in his framework, there was nothing to be remorseful about. This is perhaps the most disturbing element of Ahmad Suradji, not the number of victims, not the method, not even the 11 years of invisibility. It is the completeness of his belief. He was not hiding from what he had done. He was proud of it. 42 women and girls. The youngest was 11 years old. They came from different backgrounds, different circumstances, different levels of desperation. Some were young women in troubled relationships. Some were older women who had been dealing with problems for years and had run out of other places to turn. Some had families who loved them and spent years not knowing what had happened. In Indonesian culture at the time, the shame attached to the kinds of problems these women brought to Suradji, relationship failures, desires that felt too private to share, meant that many of them had not told anyone where they were going. Disappearances in rural communities, especially of women, were not always immediately reported. Some families waited. Some assumed the woman had left by choice. The sugarcane fields held their secrets for 11 years. Every one of those 42 people deserves to be more than a number in a case file. But for many of them, what little record exists is only the record of how they died. Their lives before that field, their names, their hopes, the problems they were trying to solve, are mostly lost. That loss is its own kind of horror. Ahmad Suradji stood trial in 1998. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. His wife Tumini received a life sentence for her role in the killings. Suradji spent years on death row as his legal team filed multiple appeals. Indonesian courts reviewed the case several times. Each time, the conviction was upheld. On July 10, 2008, more than a decade after his arrest, Ahmad Suradji was executed by firing squad at a prison in North Sumatra. He was 59 years old. He never expressed remorse, not once. Not in the courtroom, not during the appeals, not in the years on death row. In his mind, to the end, he had been doing exactly what he was supposed to do. There is a detail about this case that I cannot stop thinking about. 42 women came to Ahmad Suradji seeking help. They were vulnerable. They were struggling. They had tried other things, and those things had not worked. And somewhere along the way, they heard about this man, this quiet cattle breeder on the edge of Medan who had a gift, who could help, who could fix what was broken. And they trusted him. Trust is the most human thing we have. It is the thing that allows communities to exist, that allows us to ask for help when we need it, that allows us to believe that another person's hand extended toward us means safety rather than danger. Ahmad Suradji understood that trust completely, and he used it to walk 42 people into a field and bury them alive. The ritual never worked. He never reached 70. The power he was building toward never came. He died in a prison yard having destroyed 42 lives and received nothing in return. Somewhere in North Sumatra, those fields still exist. And somewhere in the record of what human beings are capable of, Ahmad Suradji holds a place that nobody should ever forget.